I think it was that we actually is more to do with stupidity on my part that I thought, I don't know, let's just tell a feature-length movie using this equipment that I'm familiar with, this cheap little camcorder, and I cut the movie together on Adobe Premiere 6. It's like a very old editing software, and we just made the crazy sort of decision to make a feature-length movie instead of a short, and what I felt was that an audience would be patient enough to just want to get into a story and not necessarily go, oh, this is shot on the camcorder, this must suck, I'm out of here. You know, is that they'd give it the time to see where it was going, and that's why I think we chose. I don't want to ruin it for you now, but this story that, you know, it kind of all falls into place within the last 10 minutes, and I kind of felt that an audience would be patient enough to sort of go with that. And
it sounds to me that you like you made that decision about, well, whether it was a decision or whether it was just we use what we've got as a part of the aesthetic for the movie. You kind of made it part of the style of the film. So you know, I mean, deliberately so that it actually works, rather than people going, you know, oh, well, it looks kind of like it's a cheap movie, but the way you've done it, it's like it's part of the aesthetic, and that actually works as if it's kind of like documentary or something. In a way.
We hope so. I mean, I always felt it'd be really cool to make a film that was very indicative of the time in which it was made and in which it was shot. And because you look at movies like Last House on the Left and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and to get a film that feels that authentically 70s is going to cost millions now. And I thought, well, let's just do that. Listen, hopefully in 20 years' time, who's going to give a shit about our film in 20 years' time? But in 20 years' time,
you never know.
People will sort of look at our cheap little camcorder movie and say, man, that looks like one of those films made about 2006, 2007. Shot on a camcorder, man. Now movies are, you know, 3D and, you know, you can touch the thing. But, you know, I kind of thought that would be okay. I thought, well, let's embrace that. And even though the aesthetic is gonna crumble with age,
but do you
not over time? I thought.
But do you not think that one of the things that makes your film individual is that sense that it's one guy's story?
Well, I think so. To a degree, yeah. I mean, because I think that it was always about for me. It was always about the story and the journey of the character, and that was primary. That was everything else was. Everything else was just how we were going to approach it. I mean, it was really important to me that in terms of tone and mood, we got that absolutely right, because it would have been so easy to have just maybe not taken the film seriously because of the format we were shooting on. I kind of felt there's more of a challenge to try and tell a story that hopefully emotionally engages an audience. Yeah. And if you guys could do that and get past the format, then that's great. That's all we were really asking of you as an audience. And if you can't, if you're not able to get past it, then again I see that as a failing on our part to not engage you. That's the beauty of film. It's very subjective.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think from a story level as well, I mean, we never really sort of tried to tackle the big questions of why the apocalypse was happening and what caused it, and it was very much, let's just take it down to a really, really personal level, you know, and let's tell that story. And I think
that works.
I think that's
that
people
really
react
well
to that quite well
with your aesthetic, though, with the budget that you worked in.
Yeah,
you tried to do something massive on a small budget. You know, and it's not going to work. But this personal story where you're focusing in on that, maybe works perfectly for your aesthetic and your budget restrictions.
Definitely. I mean, and we wrote. I wrote the script based around what we had available to us. But what I really didn't want to do was say, well, we got these empty streets and we got these amazing actors and bring all this depth to these characters, and that's it. I said, well, you know what? As a zombie fan, I'd want to see a siege sequence. Yeah. I'd want to see like a broad daylight street fight. So I didn't want to shy away from those moments.
How did your working relationship come about? And you know, and you getting the role, or you obviously did you know each other before the film?
We worked on a couple of short films. We met through a mutual friend, and we worked on a couple of short films, and we kind of had the same sort of interest film-wise. I think we just love of everything and stuff. And Marc approached me to play Colin quite early on, I think, in its development, and and it was just one of those things. I was sort of. I took the concept away with me and had a little sit down and think, a movie from a zombie's perspective, you know, will that work?
Isn't that what's individual about your movie, though?
I hope so. That was certainly the when we were sort of making the film, I was excited about the idea that I don't think anything had been done the way we wanted to do it. I mean, I know Andrew Parkinson had done iZombie, which is told from the perspective of a guy who's bitten, and the whole movie is a slow progression of him becoming a zombie, and it actually lends itself more to The Fly.
I was going to say, it sounds a bit like Martin.
Yeah, Martin was, the thing with Martin, again, I mean, in terms of the title, I guess.
Thing, but
in terms of title, it's kind of like a gentle name. You almost, again, it's one of those names you can almost, you could forgive him for what he does, because it's not like you called him, Mr. Bastard or something.
the way a lot of the times when we were working, it was just sort of me, Marc, and a couple of other people with bits of equipment, and we would just go out and. I mean, sometimes it was just me and Marc, and
mainly the camcorder.
Yeah, the camcorder and the people of Tooting, which was
great. They all looked like zombies to start with.
But
I used to live near Tooting. Yeah, no, it's right.
And
they're all still there. Those same guys are like, they're all still there.
But we would just go out and we would just try and find sort of these empty locations and just try and capture something and so for as an actor, it was an amazing experience, because Marc and I sort of always would come to the scenes from a different
end of the spectrum.
Pretty different end of the spectrum, and be like, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this, and then we would usually find somewhere in between that we would be like, oh yeah, that's really good. But again, the way we shot it was, there was so much sort of there was room to manoeuvre, I think, a little bit, in terms of I think
once you get the tone, you know what tone you need to get in the scene, in the movie or the story you're trying to tell. Once you get that tone right, then you can experiment with the performances and try and find something that you might not have initially thought of. That's where the collaboration part of filmmaking comes in.
How long did it take to shoot? It took over a period of time.
It was 18 months of simultaneous editing and shooting. So we'd shoot stuff I'd shoot stuff and then I'd take it into my crappy day job and I'd edit in the office. And then then on the days where you were working and I wasn't, I'd just work in the sound design in my bedroom, sort of chewing through passels into the camcorder mics and mixing them into the sounds.